All right, let's continue this series today, shall we? Teams that have missed the playoffs and looking at where and why. Chicago's an interesting one because Chicago still a pretty good team. They finished at 36, 34, and 12, which was actually an 8-point improvement over last season. Last year they had 76 points, this year 84. And really, honestly, they would have been a wild card at the very least if not for some really rough times they had early in the year. Um, and if you're looking at their salary structure going forward, it is impossible not to take note that Kane and Taves are 30 years of age. Their $10.5 million contracts go until 2023. The good news about that is Kane had the best year of his career, and Taves appears to be back. So for this year, we're not talking about those contracts as being over the top in terms of them being able to put a team on the ice that can compete. And not only that, but with the salary cap continuing to rise, every year there will be contracts that are more than that. See McDavid, Matthews, and whatnot. So they're not going to be the top 3 or 4, contracts anymore, and we'll stop harping on it. Seabrook, $6.88 million until 2024. That feels a little more cumbersome, but again, the salary cap keeps going up. And that contract, while it may be somewhat cumbersome, it doesn't appear that he's going anywhere at this point in time. I say that he'll be traded as soon as this video goes live. Unrestricted free agents of note. Kruger, I don't think he comes back. If he does, it's at a reduced rate over what he got this year. Kunitz, I think he's retiring. He probably should have retired last year, let's be honest. And Cam Ward, who I would think will go to unrestricted free agency because I think Chicago's going to look for some improvement in their goaltending outside of Crawford. And we'll see if Delia ends up being that guy, and if it's Delia and Crawford, and then what else they do within their lineup. Restricted free agents this summer. Kemp, $925K he got paid. He potentially goes to arbitration. He can opt for arbitration. Perlini at $863K. Forsling at $873K this year. Cuckoo made $865K. Played decently after the trade from Tampa. He, of course, is arbitration eligible. And Sakura stands out kind of, sort of. $925K, also arbitration worthy. The important thing to note here is none of these guys are going to get a big raise. Perlini will get a raise over $863K, but how much? Does he factor in? Is Chicago going to keep him long term, or are they going to phase him out, maybe trade him off? What are they going to do? Worthy of note and not on the board, and all, because I don't want to get into all the prospects and all of that too. I try to keep this series as simple as I can. There are a lot of defensive prospects for Chicago, headlined by Yoki Haru and Boquist. And there's some rumor out there that maybe, of their 4 big prospects, one of them might be available for trade. Until I see it, I'm not going to buy it. You never have too much defense. That's not a thing. You can't. And, when it comes to prospects of the 4, the likelihood that they perhaps don't live up to their advanced billing, well, 4 of them, you guarantee that one of them has to. 2 of them should. 3 of them, maybe. 4 of them, probably not. So, again, it's a lottery of sorts in that the more you have, the better chance you have of getting that guy who will replace Keith, the guy who will replace Seabrook. Because Keith, I didn't put his contract up here. He's still under contract, I believe, till 2021. Or 2023. Anyways, his contract is not prohibitive. $5.5 million is a reasonable cap hit for Keith at this stage. Because, again, the cap keeps going up. But they're going to need defensemen who can replace these guys. And so the more the merrier when it comes to defensive prospects, as far as I'm concerned. The defining moment of their season was November 6th. At a record of 6-6-3, they decided to fire Joel Quenneville. And whether it's because he lost the room, whether it's because of a fight between he and management, whatever the reason, or just this toxic environment that was in the locker room at the time, after being fired, the team goes 30-28-9. So it didn't adversely affect their record. Their record was mildly better after Colleton took over as coach. All indications are he remains as coach through next season, and gets a chance to see if he can help right this ship. Now, the good news for Chicago as well is, according to Cap Friendly, they've got $60.7 million in cap space, or not cap space, everybody wishes, in cap spoken for next year. So $60.7 million. The cap is supposed to be around $83 million for next year. That'd give them about $20 million. So that's enough money that if they wanted to jump in and get a big name, they might be able to do so. And this is without needing to trade a Brandon Saad or trade an Asimov. They might be able to just go out there and just get somebody on the free agent market. And that would be a very interesting turn of events if they were going to do that. Now, with that said, and with their record, I do think Chicago can jump back into the playoffs next year. And getting a top 3 pick in the draft definitely more than helps. And I do think that they end up drafting Podkolzin. Podkolzin's been pretty highly rated all year. I know there's others as well people are talking about, but the fact that Chicago has their choice of number 3, 4 or 5 really solid prospects, tells you just how good a position they're in. This is a team that had 84 points this year, and they're going to get the number 3 prospect in the draft, which, if they play that right, can jump right into that lineup on an entry-level contract, which is where DeBrincat still is as well. And yeah, you got yourself a pretty entertaining show here. In fact, yeah, I just had to double check. So let's get into next summer, because DeBrincat's going to be coming up next summer. Strome comes up next summer as well. So if you're going to pick somebody up, you have to look to next summer and what's going to happen then. Cahoon's up next summer as well. That's going to be an expensive line after next year. But all of them being on entry-level contracts means that Chicago can absolutely take a run next year. Gustafson's an unrestricted free agent next summer. He's going to get a raise based on the way he played this year. Fantastic run for him. And also an unrestricted free agent next summer, Corey Crawford. And, of course, with Crawford's injury history and whatnot, what's going to happen there? All right. So back to where they lost it and where they can get it back. And again, when you listen to the guys on expiring contracts next year and all these entry-level deals, Chicago's in a very similar position to the one Toronto was in this year, where you've got Matthews, you've got Marner, they're still on their entry-level deals, and in their case, it is Strome and it is DeBrincat, and DeBrincat with 40 goals. This team could be really dangerous. Anybody going to bet against DeBrincat for 50 next year, you might do so at your own peril. But where they lost it, so October 27th till November 12th, they lost 8 in a row. So in the middle of that first losing streak is when they said, all right, Quenneville's gone. But I had heard rumors about Quenneville going before that. And so he's out of the picture. And then they move on to Jeremy Colleton. And it definitely seemed to help them at times this year, but it felt like there was a dysfunction there. They lost 8 in a row from November 27th till December 11th. And then January 9th to 17th, they lost 5 in a row. So 8 in a row, 5 in a row. That's 21 losses right there in those 3 streaks. When Chicago was good, they were very good. They had some very nice winning streaks to offset these losing streaks, but the losing streaks killed them. November 21st through December 16th, they lost 12 out of 14 games. So if you want to look for the exact moment where this team, it just doesn't work for them, they don't make the playoffs, that's it right there, November 21st to December 16th. And then after that, they were fighting, swimming upstream, trying to make it into the playoffs, and they just didn't quite have enough. Chicago's going to be very good next year. And the fact that you have so many guys who are still on entry-level contracts, that they could go out this summer and pick somebody up, on top of having the number 3 overall draft pick this year, there might be some very upset people seeing Chicago in a top spot next year. I could see Chicago being one of those teams that ends up being first in the division after being a playoff miss the year before. I could see that. So there you go. Just an overlook at the Hawks. Again, Kane and Taves, that $21 million they're spending on those two doesn't stand out as much as it did, say, 2 or 3 years ago. due to the fact that that's kind of the going rate now for a lot of forwards who may not score as well as Patrick Kane. And I think that might be the one thing that Patrick Kane, now in his 30s, is he going to be able to produce like he did this year? He had an MVP-like performance for Chicago. Will he be able to do that again next year? And overall, what do they do with that number 3 pick? And how does that affect the team next year? Because if they grab somebody and they say, all right, we want somebody who can jump into the lineup right now, that would likely rule Podkolzin out, and they would likely pick somebody else. And if they get somebody who can jump in and produce right away, you add in the fact that at least one of their young defensemen joins that top 6 next year and probably improves that. This team could be scary. The only question mark I would have, Corey Crawford's health, and whether or not Delia can work over a full 82-game schedule as a backup. That's my only question mark. Other than that, Chicago looks pretty solid. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just tap it upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.